Pittsburgh in town tonight, but they're no good, right? So,
well, they do have Lars Eller.
They got Lars Eller.
Who's their goalie, Jack?
Oh,
what?
That's a very, very.
No, that's a legit question.
No,
I don't know who is.
More,
We talked about
more complex than you think.
Jack is the Pittsburgh guy.
They have 3 goalies, Rhett.
You
Oh,
have 10 minutes. So what's the thing when you have 3 goalies?
no goalies?
That's
Oh, okay.
I also heard that about quarterbacks. If you have 2, you don't have any.
I actually subscribe
Don't
to
change
that.
the subject.
What about
to the
podcasters?
frickin' Steelers. Don't change the subject.
He is trying to get to the Steelers.
Yeah,
which is fair.
Yes, he's great.
Because they have 2 quarterbacks. I'd argue they have none.
Who are you going with if you're the coach? Like, where's Sully going with this?
Yeah, Fields or Wilson?
Najelkovic.
Really?
Needle dick.
That's what we're calling him, apparently.
Should we call him then?
Tristan Jarry felt like for a while he was the goalie for the Penguins. The last few years, the States has been their
So
guy.
did Matt Murray.
I threw it out to the guys. Tristan Jarry against the Flames, all 4-1-2, a 1.92 goals against, 938 save percentage, guaranteed start. Then, right?
Some would call that tidy.
Yeah, he's
Very tidy.
doesn't sound like he's a lock in any way, shape, or form
No,
to go
there's,
tonight. No. He might be, to double back, he might be eating popcorn as well tonight.
He's getting the Samsonov treatment that we saw last year in Toronto, which is you're so shaky. We need you to go away from the sport and just return in a few weeks when you feel like a normal human that can be a hockey player.
Clearly, you're terrible. So we're going to let you go sit on a beach somewhere and find your game.
And whatever it is that you've got, we don't want it rubbing off on the other guys. So if you could just get the H out of here and just get away from everybody, that would be for the best.
Now, if he is eating popcorn, please reach out. We'll let you know the best place to go get it.
He also, those numbers aren't good. They're also flattering because the expected environment.
They're flattering?
Well, compared,
I actually watched.
How many starts?
I watched the
starts?
Sabres game versus when Jarry was in net. It was
Well, that was the one. He started opening night and they got blasted 6-0 by the Rangers.
That's right.
And then they wanted to try and boost this Tristan
play
Jarry.
the
We're going to
Sabres.
boost. We're playing the Sabres. Put him in, and he was awful.
awful. It was like he didn't know where the net
Or
was.
they win 5-4 or something. What was it?
It was 6-5. It was a lot of goals.
So, and then Needle Dick, as some will call him, Alex.
We are a first class.
He's also got the. In fairness, it's a small sample size. He let in 5 against Winnipeg the other day, and was the best player on the ice. That seems to be the report coming out.
Good
of
first
Winnipeg.
period.
Yeah. Good first period. They play 3 of them, I think.
Yeah, but you got to stepping stones, Steve.
Yeah. So
this is the most painful spot to be in. They have aging superstars and they're not good enough. So what do you do?
What do you do?
And so they extend all the superstars and they're never going to be good enough because you're always going to say, we could add this guy at the deadline and there's no kids coming. Like, that's why I said I hated that Sidney Crosby extension because they're not going to win with him ever again. He should be elsewhere. But he's
so you
too
hate
loyal.
it. You hate it for him.
I hate it for him. I want to see him win a cup again. For the Penguins, it's a song, but it also keeps them in this purgatory of mediocrity.
I've always said so. I always go back to Seabrook because they owed him money in a way. They'd won the cups. They'd had success. Blah blah blah. Big part of it. Gets the big contract, and instantly everyone's like, "This is not going to go well," and it didn't. But Brent Seabrook's not Sidney Crosby.
Crosby's still very good. That's the difference.
Yes, that. But at what point? I guess what I'm saying is that I've said as GM, sometimes you have to make shitty decisions. And one of them might be, I don't care if you want to come back, Sid.
Yeah.
But there's different levels, right? Like, I think Sid is above that, where it's like,
it's an owner decision, right?
Yeah. Like,
He's
you
part of the
don't
brand.
get to decide, Mr. GM. Like, who was it in Tampa? Was it Yzerman that said St. Louis?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Like, that's a tough decision. It's the
But
right
Jerome
decision.
McGinley and Calgary boys. That was above the
I was going to
GMs.
say,
They
how
all knew that.
comparable is that?
But and it is. But then that's just it. And Jerome decided that he would go.
But the GM could never do it.
But there's a handful of guys that play that are out there. And even if Duncan Keith wasn't that. Brent Seabrook's not that. Jonathan Taves, to me, in Chicago, is that, where it's like, you get to decide. Do you want to stay or not? Crosby, I think, is that. Where's the level where the GM can go to You know what I mean?
How long
There's
was the deal?
iconic players.
Sorry, the Crosby deal.
It was only a couple years.
3 or 4 years, 3 years, and he's got this year already. So it's 4 more years. I just don't see the team being good in the next 4 years. Like they're going to be what they've been, which is at best a bubble team and out in the first round if they even get in.
But why
Right?
is
It's the tail end of the again layer. You want to see the one jersey guy because they're iconic. It's a future first ballot Hall of Famer. He might be by the end of his career like a Mount Rushmore player in the history of this league, like top 4.
What makes it worse is everybody around him as well, because you have Malkin, who's kind of in that same.
But
Not really. I mean,
not really. How?
well, he's not. He's not a top 10 player of all time.
What I'm saying is older guy.
Near the
they're
end. Very old. Yes.
Chris Letang near the end. Just to go back to Josh Yohe, I believe is how you pronounce. Not sure, but he talking about trending up. Tristan Jarry. I don't even know if he's playable right now. That's how bad and woefully unimpressive he's been. Chris Letang, he was terrible late last season, and unfortunately it's carried into this season. Erik Karlsson, if possible, he's been worse than Letang. So it's not, you have Sid who signed, hey, it's a great deal for him, the whole thing. But then you've also got Malkin, who's had a great start, but aging.
But I see, that was my question. And I was going to say, I don't think Crosby was great last year.
Crosby,
sure. I think he'll be good this year. I think he'll be good next year. I don't think he
totally.
He's not the problem. Hang the issue that they're not going to be good on him.
It's absolutely not the issue.
He's dirt cheap, and he gives you lots of points.
Is around Crosby. You have the second oldest team in the league that was the oldest in the team in the league last year. You have no young stars coming, and the guys that you're paying the most money to are well into the back nine, with the exception of Sidney Crosby, who's still playing at prime levels.
And I think Malkin can elevate his game, but I also
bad
think
year
Malkin
last year, but
lead.
Good start this year.
And your goalies are letting in 6 a night.
Like they got guys playing defense here that I like Saint Ivany, Shea. Like, what are we talking about here? Like,
Brady Shea is good. I don't know what you're talking about.
What's wrong with him?
It's not him either. Nor is it Shea Weber.
So this is him.
Like
Grizzlick.
Make it big.
Grizzlick top pair, probably not ideal. Pedersen, a guy. Graves, tough since that trade from Jersey. That hasn't gone well for them. And Ryan Shea, I don't know who you are. Sorry, my bad.
For me, it's Karlsson. You effed it up big time when you brought Karlsson over.
And this was the spot they're in. It's like when you've committed to Malkin, you know you're going to bring back Crosby. You've committed to Letang. They didn't allow themselves to reload. It was always puck committed.
But
right?
What about Dallas?
What about Dallas?
Well, Sagan and Ben were superstars at one point. They aren't anymore, but they've reloaded, and those guys are still making lots of dough, but they've still done it. Now they've got a great goaltender. So
they've drafted and developed really well.
That's my point, though.
Difference.
That's my point. Is that
you
can't hang shit on Malkin and Crosby and say it's their fault.
It's not their fault. No one's saying it's their fault.
It's that they haven't done it smartly at all.
It's that when Kyle Dubas got there, they were already old and they had no prospects. He's trying to change that, but how do you do that when you're locked into the rest of Crosby and Malkin?
Well,
and
you
Karlsson?
don't bring in Karlsson.
Probably not, but I mean, so they're still middle of the pack without Karlsson last
but
year.
You still, Well, I think we're agreeing and trying
like
to argue.
I looked at that spot when Dubas went there. I'm like, that might be the toughest job in the league because you've got these iconic one jersey players that everyone wants you to re-sign. They're going to the Hall of Fame. And you have no prospects, and you're not good enough with them. So what do you do?
Well, my point: you don't bring in Karlsson. You go talk to Sid and Malkin and maybe Letang. It's probably 2 years from now, because you don't. When you've got that base to build off of, you're not starting from zero. You need a couple young kids. And why do other teams? Why are they able to go get young kids that can perform?
Right? Like I don't been trading the first rounder for a decade. That's pretty much what the Penguins
but you're
doing,
still.
Right?
Well, I can't say.
Like Dallas hasn't been doing that.
Yeah, but you still have to have your eyes wide open going into it. And anyway, I thought it was the stupidest thing in the world that they went and got Karlsson, and that maybe isn't the do all end all. Clearly, the goaltending is a massive piece, but you did have oh my God, I can't say his name again. He's in Tampa.
Gensel.
I just said it.
Yeah. Jake Gensel.
Yeah. That was a massive asset to get younger and better. And there's got to be other guys that you could look at. And we don't look at the lineup. And I don't know.
So when they traded Gensel, the whole idea was we love this guy. We'd love to have him. But A, when you're paying all these stars, you're kind of capped out. And B, we need to get younger. So what they did is they tried to serve both masters. Okay, we'll take Bunting back because he can help us now. and we'll take these 4 prospects in a second round or whatever it was in the deal. And so you've added some depth to your prospect system. But like Jack's a big Penguins fan. Is there a star prospect you're excited to see that you can name?
No.
That's the fucking problem.
It's you know what you need.
We all agree.
You know what you needed?
We're arguing, but
No,
we agree.
we're absolutely agreeing. You needed somewhere along the way that intellectual honesty.
Yes, Dean, gotta have it.
Yeah,
because it's not as though they hadn't won. They won a cup together a long time ago. They then won back-to-back cups. It's not as though you had Sidney Crosby nearing, over 30, Malkin. That we need to win for this team.
Mm-hmm.
You'd already won.
Yeah.
To have some Belichick-esque kind of tough decisions.
Yeah.
You need to make some tough decisions. Otherwise, we could be really bad for a long time, which is and now it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
But it's the one thing. It's not like you were robbing Crosby and Malkin of a cup that they hadn't
No, they got
won.
3.
They had them already.
And to be fair, like they had that chance with Letang and Malkin, and they didn't do it. They should have. And it's the same thing that Chicago did, and it's the same thing LA did, and that's why it's so hard to be a GM, because to do what the Lightning did to Stamkos, Frank always says it. Or Noodles does. You almost have to be a sociopath to treat someone that way, where it's like one Jersey guy, you've been great for us. You've been underpaid your whole career. We've hung banners with your work being a big part of it. And we think we might be able to get a 1% increase in our production if we move you out and Gensel in. That's how ruthless you have to be. And so when you reference Chicago, once they'd paid all those guys for what they had done and not what they were, they never did anything again. I don't know that they've won a series since, within very recent of that final cup. Like it was, maybe they get in, they get swept, they lose in the first round, and then they had Kane and Taves forever, and they never won anything for after that, those 3 cups. And so
is
you have to be a psycho to actually do what we're suggesting we do, right?
Halt for 1 second. Deep insight here. Do you have to be a psycho and move those guys, or can you just go to them and say, listen, and I'm not talking about Chicago, I'm talking about in Pittsburgh. Even I'll include Letang before Carlson.
I think it was Letang, Malkin, same summer. Yeah.
So Sidney, Malkin, and Letang are there. And when was the lad they won a cup? 17-ish?
Sure.
After that, maybe you still think you can three-peat. Okay.
That's the thing, right?
But after the season, you start to see, well, this is going to, can you not go to them and say, listen, we can continue to throw all of our assets at this, or I can rebuild, and in 2 years, we'll get back to where we were. But I'm going to have to make some tough decisions. And it doesn't have to be those guys leaving, right? The reason they didn't have assets is because they traded away firsts and picks for stopgaps to fill spots thinking they were still going to win. If you don't give up those picks and you make good picks, certainly they're going to hit on something.
Yeah, but not 2 years. If you're picking 14 to 20 every year, you're waiting 4 years. Look at how long it's taken Zary. Not that he's 14 to 16. But,
I disagree.
But I think if you really wanted to win a cup with Sid again, you had to move one of the other guys for assets. Not unlike when the Flames had Jerome. After a 40-goal year, they talked themselves into being a good team when they weren't. Everyone knew they weren't. And so when they finally do get around to trading him, you end up with nothing. A first, a fringy couple prospects, like nothing.
And I'm not saying that
you had a chance to sell high in
that
Malkin
approach. I don't disagree with that approach. If you can, well, you could obviously somebody would take them, but if they are willing to go, sure, you could absolutely. That's me saying Giordano has to go.
Yeah, it is.
That's me saying, why are we hanging on to this guy who's not part of the window of opportunity?
It's even harder because you won with those guys and they're one jersey players. So to say Gio's got to go when the team wasn't good enough, but if that guy's going to the rafters and he's got rings, fuck, that's hard to do.
Well, I was going to say it,
but that
if you think about it as Malkin,
yeah,
your first rounder, 3 Stanley Cups. I'm sure Art Ross, like he's
the guy.
He's one of the greatest of all time.
Hall of Famer.
Is there a situation? I'm trying to think. Jim Rutherford, Ron Hextall, who are some of the GMs, that there was a situation where they walked upstairs to say, I think it would be the best for us if we traded Evgeny Malkin.
The last extension.
And they tell you, you can just close the door on the way out. I've got a call to make. I don't know how that would go over.
He almost left on his own accord because he was trying to get the high AAV, right?
I'm trying to, because yes, you're right. The hard decisions and moving the top end guys when they should be moved and reading the team, like predicting the future, doing some actual hard thinking on it, yeah, you can move the guy and get a massive return. I'm trying to think, is there ways to keep, because that's what they did from their first cup to the third cup. Like, why did they won a cup in what 2008 or 9-ish in that area?
Yeah.
And then it was 7 or 8 years, and it was still the key guys were the key guys.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you know what I mean? So why did it work then and you couldn't do it again?
They chased some guys too, though. Remember in there they gave up.
They did.
Bill Guerin and Gary Roberts, and they did chase.
Here's the difference.
And sacrifice picks.
Letang and Malkin were in their non-negotiable primes when they won the third cup. Those guys aren't now. And Malkin's had a great start.
Give me a
Go
list.
look at last year.
They've obviously been. I'm swearing too much. Terrible in their drafting. They haven't had a lot of drafting, but they've obviously been terrible because I'm looking at your chicken scratch here, and it doesn't look. Nobody jumps out to me as someone they've drafted and has progressed and become a.
I don't think anyone on this team has been drafted by them. I don't know about the O'Connor kid, but like Rust came up through their system. That was ages ago. He was probably there for the last cup. Yeah. Bunting and trade, Raquel trade, Beauvillier UFA or trade, Eller UFA or trade, Glass trade, Hayes trade, Achari. He's been everywhere. Puyarvi, guy that was left on the scrap heap they picked up.
Exactly.
Like Pedersen, acquired from Anaheim. Grizzlick, free agent signing or trade. Letang has always been there. Carlson trade. Other Graves trade. Like there's no homegrown guys.
And if you look here, right, it's they didn't have a first round pick in the 21 or the 20 draft. They took Sam Poulin first in 19, and then before that, 2018, 2017, 2016, 2015.
That's chasing.
No first round picks.
And rightfully so. Those teams are competitive at the time. They made the playoffs. They were probably home ice teams in the playoffs a lot of those years. That's what you do. So to stay competitive forever is almost impossible. And that's what they're showing you. There wasn't some classic blunder. They just kept hanging on, thinking next year we can be a little bit better.
You know, when you do I can see her on the old draft picks.
Yeah, buddy.
You love it. Is there usually, so yes, first rounder better, second good, third higher the better usually. Like but most teams have a one-off.
Your man Japani in the sixth round.
Johnny Gaudreau.
Johnny in the fourth.
Like, is there anything
Wolf
that jumps out? And not, even if they don't play for your team, you might have drafted them and they went somewhere else and been like, oh, right? Is there anyone that
you know what? It's 2024. We're going into 2025. The 2020 draft, the Connor Zary, the one goalie they have, Joel Blomqvist. They took him in that draft. No one else has played.
What round?
The second round.
Okay.
2019. Valerie Puustinen is on this team.
He's a spare forward.
He's the only guy to speak of.
Yeah.
Kalen Addison from the 18 draft.
They traded him to Minnesota.
He's gone, the only guy. They had no one from their 2017 draft. Was that 6 players? No one played a game.
Mm-hmm.
Philip Gustafson, the goalie who's no longer with them.
Very good.
Is
but
the
not there.
only guy from the 16 draft. So it's hard enough to hit on first rounders.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone when you don't have them.
Yeah.
And then you almost go over for the rest of the
That is a bad draft.
It is so similar to the Flames at the end of the Jerome era. The only difference is that this team has 3 rings and they were a contender for a lot of those years in there that you talk about them not having firsts. Like you're not trading your first because you're trying to get in. These are teams trying to win cups that year.
Like look at this retro.
Like you're not even
the 16, 17, and 18 drafts. So 3 years of drafts, 1 goalie and 1 defenseman who played over 150. No forwards. No forwards of consequence have played from 3 consecutive drafts for the Penguins.
And clearly they're drafting bad. Clearly they went for it, so they've given up their higher draft positions. But like I said, they're not even getting lucky on a guy.
No.
They're not even hitting a...
Well, and where they've had to move him out and trade. Like John Marino was
but
drafted.
you're not even seeing that. That's my point, is that I don't even see... I know what Marino's won.
Marino, they picked up as a college free agent. He was drafted by Edmonton.
He's college free agent.
Dominic Simone is their diamond in the rough, needle in the haystack.
Yeah, she is.
Round 5 from 2015.
2015, round 5. Dominic Simone is the most impactful player they've drafted in the NHL since.
Yeah, gross.
That's their Mangiapane Gaudreau success.
And again, that reminds you of the Flames from like 09 to 13 when Daryl, he was not drafting and developing well. He was trading picks all the
That's
time.
terrible.
And then the one guy from the 2013 draft, Tristan Jarry, they can't play him anymore.
Yeah, well, and that's
Well, hey, Jack, I mean, I'm sorry. It feels like we're kind of dumping on your team here.
at least the Steelers are 5-2.
Steelers look great. They're a
Can
wagon.
Tomlin coach hockey?
That's a good question.
Because they make the playoffs every year with Tomlin.
We showed the highlights of the Steelers going to that Penguins game, and they get mic'd up, and they're all excited about it. Like, when are they going to score? Like, oh, they didn't. That was the Rangers game, 6-0.
Right.
Season
I can't
opener,
wait for a
pump
goal.
6 rip.
Not great.
But
So what
make
about
sure
on
you get your tickets, get down to the Dome. It's
Yeah,
going to be a
they've-
hell of a game.
They've lost 2 straight. I'll say this. If and when the Penguins go on a power play, you're still going to see some of the greatest Hall of
100%.
Famers.
100%.
Oh, plenty out on that power play.
Last year we saw it with Gensel, and this year it's like somebody else, but it's still Malkin, Crosby, theoretically Letang, and Carlson. Those are all Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah,
Amazing.
4 guys that could do the power play by themselves.
Yeah.
So who wants to be net front? Right? Like, it's
I'll
put
go.
your snow boots on and keep your stick on.
I'll
the
go
ice.
and take my 90 points by standing here.
Bunting is like, I will. You're a healthy scratch.
We don't
Shut
like
up.
you.
Probably
You're a
rusts
pain in the
so
ass.
Yeah.
Go away.
So there you have it. Congrats to the Penguins on their inevitable victory tonight.
Right.
After we've basically just slayed them for 30 minutes.
Yeah, and to be fair, no one thinks this is a bad team. We all think this is a team that's stuck very much in the middle of the NHL. And that's what we talked about here with peak pain. If you're going to miss by a point or two, that is the most painful thing. That's what they've done 2 years in a row. All they did was beat Chicago 2 years ago in the last game of the year. They didn't do it. Florida got in, went to the Cup final. Last year, down the stretch, can't get in. Washington beats them for the playoff spot. What does that mean? Well, it means you're not drafting high and you're not getting in the playoffs. Peak pain.
15th overall.
You can absolutely miss it. Pick 15, 16. We see it all the time. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Be sure to check out more of our content right here on the Flames Nation YouTube page. We had a bunch of great long form interviews. You can check out some videos we've done as well outside of the studio. And of course, if you want more writing or merchandise stuff, flamesnation.ca or nationgear.ca. Appreciate you watching.